All right, welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass Podcast, Kevin and Chuck. Today, we're going to talk about putting together the perfect IFAK. Now, those of you who weren't in the military or not in the prepper world as much, whatever, an IFAK is an individual first aid kit. Now, what can be a little confusing is it's not really meant to be because it's designed for the military. It's not really like a first aid kit. It's more like a trauma kit.
Right,
And
right.
and that's kind of the approach, we're going to take with this is putting together the trauma bag,
Mhm.
And that's we're going to see it like that. But um with the trauma bag, there's certain items that you want in there. First, you want your bag, like my bag, like this. They make ones that'll hook on your belt and different sizes. Usually, these you'll see on the guy's leg. Um, I have two of these. Well, I have three of these. One I keep in my truck, one I keep in my car, and one I keep kind of in my barn, where basically there's one that's accessible pretty much all around. Um, what you want is to have stuff that you know how to use is the bottom line.
Right.
People, they sell all these different things and these kits. They sell them. I've seen trauma bags for $100, $150. You should be able to put something together for, if you're going extreme budget, probably about $35.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you can
honestly,
it can go up from there. You know what
right.
I mean? It can be
Honestly,
however much you
pretty
want.
pretty quality at $60, and you know, premium. I'm an EMT and need things, that are right because it's my
Right.
world and it's what I think about and focus
And I
on
know how to use all that stuff.
for
Yeah.
$120. But the bottom line is you only want to put things you know how to use. And that's the big thing that people don't get when they pack any kind of medical bag. What happens is when you're in an emergency situation, you want to make sure that you can get to the stuff you need right away and find it. You don't want to be sorting through junk that, people have stethoscopes and, every other damn
Yeah, I've
thing in
seen
there.
some
And it's
wild
like,
shit in
and
first aid
and
kit.
that's fine. Like, the
Right.
EMT guy might be able to utilize that and say, hey, look, I'm looking at his pulse, and when I time it, I'm able to decipher
Mhm.
something. Or when I listen to the rhythm of his heart, I can figure, some things out. Look, I hear little things going on. Yeah, that's great. But if you're not that guy, which I'm not that guy that
Right.
can discern irregular heartbeats and whatever, then maybe that's not the thing for you to be taking up space in your bag and
Right.
taking up space in your budget. So let's kind of go through a bag and see what we can see and see what makes sense. Um, I was shown my first bag, and one of the first bigger trainings that I went to was with, it was the guy who did the SWAT training for Dallas SWAT, I think. Um and he's like, look, this is what I tell my guys to have. And he went through, and basically, one, I was trained to use all these things, so it all makes sense for me. Maybe it won't exactly make sense for you, but pretty much I feel like this is a stripped down basic trauma bag, and I feel like it meets all the criteria of what I'm after. So
Okay.
bottom line, regular bag, you basically want the smallest bag that you can get that you can fit everything you need. That's the bottom line. These are, I think this one was like a $10 or $15 bag just off Amazon. Not a big deal. You just want something that works. It's got the mole connectors and, whatever. Not a big deal. Um, but the fancier and nicer, you could get a little more compact. But again, this wasn't something I planned on carrying on my person. It's something I keep under the back seat in my truck. um Let me open it up, see what we got. Initial open looks kind of like this. So basically what we got. We got an Israeli battle dressing. Usually you'll see these in a gray package. I know all my other ones are gray. I don't know where this one actually came from, but I was like, oh, I should go to the other car and get the other one so everyone recognizes it. But bottom
Right.
line, whatever. Um, Israeli battle dressing, and we'll talk about why and what in just a minute. Just kind of want to go through what I see here. I have some tape, one of my more or less essential things, honestly. I have shears. Now, shears are something where your budget can really change.
Right.
Um, these are great for cutting stuff. They'll work. They're probably in the like $15 neighborhood.
Yeah.
Um, but
You can get $2 shears that can barely cut a gauze, or you could get, $15 shears that can cut through jeans or a pant,
right. And
clothes.
then you can go as far as Leatherman has, their awesome shears that are like $70. I have a pair in one of my other trauma bags that's in my primary vehicle, but it, I don't think it's necessary depending on your budget. It depends
Right.
what you guys are into. Um, all right. I have hyphen chest seal, right? Um,
Yeah, so that's really important for things like gunshot wounds or stab wounds to the chest. So you might run into some sort of puncture wound to the chest with a car accident or something like that. And I know, if you're listening to this and you're a grown man, you've come across a car accident here and there. And most of the time people are okay, but not every time. Sometimes
not
people
every
are
time,
really
right?
fucked up.
Um, I have Strips in there. They really don't belong in a trauma bag. They're so easy to throw in there behind the chest seal
They're small, right? They don't
that
take up
I
much
just don't
space.
even, I figure if I'm closing something up and it's a kind of medium cut, I can
Hmm.
deal with it. Usually, Strips are going to be like a temporary stitches option, right?
Right,
I mean, and again, depending on the cut, you might have it as the long term stitches option. Definitely, people get away with that if you're not as worried about a pretty, closure or whatever, or
right,
it's something that's not going to be moving. You definitely can do where if somebody's not in an environment where they're constantly moving it and it's maybe on your the back of your forearm or something,
right.
it's not going to be moved, then you can get away with that. Rubber gloves, I have a set of rubber gloves in there. You want to go in not causing infection, not
Right. And not getting
bringing
any.
damage.
Yeah.
A lot of guys, I don't. I usually have hand sanitizer in the car. A lot of guys will have a small bottle of hand sanitizer in their trauma bag. I never do. I kind of am more worried about it leaking and just making a mess. I mean,
Making a mess. A
that's
lot of the
me.
time that stuff
I'm not
happens.
saying it's right. That's what the
Yeah.
rubber gloves are
And
for,
you can
so I
get
can go
those
in clean.
antiseptic wipes and wipe your hands off before you put the gloves
Right.
on, but it's not as, you know, it's not necessarily going to disinfect your hands.
Um, I also have the thermal blanket, one of the bigger ones for basically for treating shock kind of thing.
Right.
And honestly, yeah,
When you get blood loss and go into shock, the first symptom of shock with blood loss is getting cold, right? You want to keep that person warm as long as you can while you're waiting for first aid or while you're getting
right.
them to someplace.
Um, I use quick clot gauze. There's also the quick clot sponge, but you guys decide what's right for you on that. You do want some kind of quick clot. That's kind of essential. So basically, you come up, you find the wound. The first thing I'm really grabbing out of my bag, honestly, is probably a tourniquet, which obviously the last item on the
Right.
list of
I
major.
now I always hear that you're not ever supposed to
Well,
use a tourniquet. Like never use a tourniquet.
Kevin,
So
that
what's the
person
deal with
lied to
this?
you.
All right. So
That person
tell me the
lied to you.
facts.
And again, well, before I jump into it, the tourniquet, there's a whole bunch of different levels. Really, $10 is probably your minimum tourniquet that is going to work. I mean, a seatbelt's going to work. But the big thing, the essential things are you want something that's an inch thick.
All right.
in the
So
width.
you're not
Sorry.
you don't want to use like a piece of rope or zip ties. You want something that's going
Exactly.
to spread out a little bit across your flesh and not dig into you.
Right. Kevin's you're never supposed to use a tourniquet theory. That's kind of that rope and that kind of thing. And guess what? If that's all you got and they're going to die, then, use the rope. But yeah, there's a good chance they're going to lose whatever you tie off with a rope. It's never coming back. But if you go an inch thick, you're good for a couple hours. You're
Hmm.
not gonna lose that leg because somebody put a tourniquet on it.
Right.
That that's one of the big things. You really want something wide. The problem is you can use anything like a belt or a seat belt or whatever, but think of how you tie off a seat belt when you do there. Now, if you can actually take kind of the buckle with it, and well, you see, you can't because you can never get it tight enough. The bottom line is when you twist it, you're going to get that knot. And that's the problem is you kind of lose that thickness in that area.
Right. In that area.
Um
Okay.
Again, use a belt, use a seat belt, use whatever you can find to tie something off. I'm not saying don't. I'm saying your motivation to buy something like this, and some guys will have two depending on the environment that you're in. We'll
Right.
have two tourniquets in their bag. So, first thing, I come up, you're assessing the situation, you assess for safety, say, hey, I can go in here. It looks okay. I'm not going to get hit by a car, right? Or they're not
Right.
shooting at me while I'm picking this guy up. Now,
Right.
that may be, but then the trick is I'm not worried about putting the tourniquet on. I'm worried about dragging the guy to somewhere where we're not getting
Right.
shot
Somewhere
at.
safe where you can. Right.
Right.
I know what you're saying.
That's how that goes, right? So I go in with my tourniquet, right? I'm going to tie it off. Then I'm probably going to put on the gloves. Yeah, I'm not worried about the gloves with the tourniquet at that point, to be honest, right? Because I'm going above the bleed. Obviously, we're talking about anything that's not in the core of the person, right? Off
Right.
the center of the body or the head.
Hmm.
Any
So you don't.
extremity
If you got like
otherwise,
a head
not the
wound, you
neck.
don't put that around your neck. All right.
Sometimes it's tempting if they talk too much, then the head might be the area.
Right.
But
You might wear it.
for the most
All right.
part, you're looking at your arms, right? You want
All
to
right. Makes
go
sense.
above the injured part, right? The punctured area. You're gonna put that tourniquet on there. They
And
have
you
a
want to go just like a few inches above, or is there a specific like? Do you want to
you
go as
do. You
far?
want to be pretty close to the wound. You don't want to go necessarily right to the armpit. Um, Try
Gotcha.
wipes. So anyway, bottom line, you want to go above it. You have the rod or the baton, right,
Right.
in the thing, and you're gonna twist it and tighten it up.
And you
You
should
want
twist
it
it up.
really tight.
So you want to
People,
twist it up till it hurts.
yeah, really
Right.
hurts.
Okay.
Usually they say you have it tight enough when the person says, "Oh, that's too tight." Then that's
That's when
right
you
when
know
you're
it's good.
right. Usually we actually the training that I went to, they had us put on the tourniquet on each other, and I've been told, oh, you're not supposed to do that. You can create blood clots, whatever. And they were like, look, if you're gonna be treating people, you need to know how
Right.
tight it is.
Right. This
So
is
when they're crying at you, stop.
yeah.
Yeah,
Right. And this is like you said, this is tourniquet is used for emergency situations like somebody's going to die, bleed to death type
yeah.
situation. It isn't like you've got something you can cover up with a band-aid or use a tourniquet and you decide to use the tourniquet. No.
It could go either way. Um, no, that's the bottom line. So, anyway, back to the tourniquet. So, you're going to tighten that up. What they usually say in the directions that come with a tourniquet is tighten it until you see the blood flow stop. And that is accurate. I mean, that is
Hmm.
what you're looking for. You never want to loosen the tourniquet unless you're trained in doing stuff. The bottom line, what they're looking at. I mean, again, if you're like, well, Chuck, if I leave the tourniquet on there for 3 days and we're trapped in the woods and it's me and my buddy and 3 days, okay. So what you need to do is you need to completely close anything that's bleeding before that tourniquet gets
Right.
loosened. That's what they're looking for. And that's
Right.
why you're waiting until you go to the doctor, the hospital, the EMTs show up. Bottom line, people who are trained and know what they're doing. And honestly, EMTs, my experience, I'm not that guy. I don't work in the ambulance or the paramedic truck, so I don't really know. But my guess is they're not going to ever loosen that tourniquet either. They're going to wait until you get to
They're
a
gonna wait
doctor
until
to
yeah,
make that
doctor
call.
does that. Yeah.
But again, that's the next thing. So then I'm going to throw on the gloves, right? Then I have my quick clot gauze. I'm going to
Hmm.
take apart that gauze and I am going to put it on my fingertip and I am going to reach in and find out where it's bleeding and that blood is coming from. I'm going to put pressure there and I'm going to keep packing in that wound with that quick clot gauze and build it up until I have it completely covered. Then I'm going to take that Israeli battle dressing and I'm going to wrap around it and keep it all in place and tie it off. Even
Hmm.
though I've got it and it's stopping the bleeding and taking care of everything there, I can then, move on to the next person or next assessment that I need to do. Hopefully, medical help is then coming and going to be an issue, where they
Yeah.
can take charge.
Now, if you live in an urban
Yeah,
area, you can expect, maybe 5, 6 minutes before the first responders start showing up, and that might be
that sounds
police, it
right.
might not be paramedics, but um, there's some places. I think most of the guys that listen to this type of podcast are the guys that live out in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah,
and you're looking at 30 minutes, at your home. If you're like up on a trail or if you're out in the woods, it might even be longer than that. So you're
right.
looking at somewhat even, you know, in the United States where we're really good at this stuff, it can take you up to an hour before somebody gets to you if you're in a remote location.
Exactly. Now back to the chest seal. Now somebody does have a punctured lung, a hole in their chest, something like that.
Right.
That's where this comes in. Basically, they can't breathe because they can't fill up their lungs. Is the bottom line, and
Right.
you're looking to cover that with this. You can also use something like a driver's license, something
Yeah, something that's
like
going to
that.
be a airtight seal. Now, a lot of the time, what happens is when your chest gets punctured like that, what's happening is the space between your lungs and your chest is filling with air, and that's what's causing your lung to collapse. So what you want to do is be able to have something that air that comes out but no air that goes in, because that's how it gets trapped in that cavity and you're going to start suffocating to death. So what you want is something that's going to seal over it, like a check valve, kind of, right? So it'll close when you try and draw your breath in, but open back up when you exhale, so that it'll let things out, but nothing in. So with a chest seal, you do like it seals on like three sides, right? Is that how that one
That
works that
sounds
you
right.
have?
So when they're
Yeah,
sucking, yeah.
right.
Yep.
So hypothetically, you could do that with a driver's license and duct tape. You know what I
Right.
mean? But again, this is emergency trauma where somebody's dying, like they're gonna die, and you have to do something right now. So
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things that your trauma kit should be something that you're prepared to use in emergency situations where somebody's dying right then.
Right.
It's possible to save somebody's life. I've seen people die and it's not pleasant.
No.
You want to be able to do what you can do to keep that from happening,
Right.
and at
Um.
least get them to a doctor.
Right. Now I know, like I actually, when I think about it, I probably don't have tape in my car, but in my truck I have a roll of like Gorilla duct tape or something like
Yeah,
that. That's the kind of thing that yeah, you can
but a
really
trauma bag has
secure
tape in it,
and
and
right.
the medical
But
tape
it's yeah, exactly. You do what you can kind of do. Now we kind of move outside the bag. That's all I have in my bag. And
in your bag.
again, it's so I can get to what I need in an emergency.
Right. So
That's
you don't have
treating high
aspirin, you don't have
stress. Right.
band-aids, you don't have any of that little stuff for, you know,
Right.
you don't have
Now,
the cortisone cream so you can put it on a bug bite or something.
I saw
Not
some of you
that
guys
stressful.
mention hemorrhoid cream in the comments. Right.
Mm.
That's I have another bag for that, and that's okay, but that's not in my immediate trauma bag.
But also
Um,
hemorrhoids can be awful, so
can
maybe
be a
put it in there
trauma,
just in
right?
case. It can be
So
traumatic.
in my truck, again, space is always a thing, and in my car, I don't have a lot of space, so I don't this, but in my truck, I have a little bit extra room, so I actually carry the like CPR mask. Um, and these are cheap. They're like $4 or $5. It has the little, cover up the I don't know if you can see it, but cover up the face. Turns out when you give somebody CPR, they're gonna throw up in your mouth. And you don't want to do that with a stranger and people you meet on the side of the road. But you do when you have a mask, you're a lot more willing to do what needs to be done. So I'm just saying that's something if you can throw in your vehicle, probably a good idea if you're trained and you understand how to do that. Now, on the flip side, in order to get away without carrying all that nonsense in my trauma bag, I buy like a $15 nonsense medical bag that I got at like off Amazon. Now in
Right,
here, honestly, this thing is like stuffed with band-aids, which is kind of weird. It's got triple antibiotic, it's got gloves, it's got gauze, it's
right.
got the little aspirin packets. I also have a second pair of shears. I also
Mhm.
have what else did I have? Oh, so they have tweezers in it. And the tweezers that came with it are like plastic and junk. Like I don't understand who's using a big pair of plastic tweezers to get at anything
Yeah,
that's going to
no,
work.
that I mean, I find with the first aid kits, it's best to, I like
Yeah.
to buy the first aid kit and
Right.
then just
Like
start replacing things with better
right,
stuff as I
exactly.
go.
So that was it. Let me show you quick cuz you'll laugh. It came with scissors that you could cut something out with. This is what I got with the scissors. I was
Right.
like, "Are you kidding me? What
Not
am I going to do with
not
that?"
a great use. Yeah, you can
So
throw that shit in
again,
the
so I
garbage.
threw a pair of shears that I had, in
Right.
there as the all right, here's something useful. Same thing, it came with the plastic tweezers that were kind of nonsense, and I upgraded to the, metal finer, heavier,
Yeah.
tweezers. I don't know, I
Now, when we're
can't dig
on
them out,
this,
but bottom
tweezers
line,
and splinters and
yes.
that sort of thing. Um, there you go. Uh, I find that a lot of the guys that I know have shot themselves or are
Sure.
going to shoot themselves with the nail guns.
Oh,
If
I
you're in
just
the
meant
construction
okay.
industry, yeah, not with your gun. Hopefully you don't
Okay.
shoot yourself in the face. You shoot your eye out or something. But with a nail gun, I mean, you're using them all the time, and you get reckless. You get fast, and you get reckless, and you end up. I haven't done it, but I've seen it happen to two different people. And your immediate instinct is you just pull that shit out. Don't pull it out, man. It's in there. It's in there good. And those nail guns, a lot of those nails have adhesive on them that when it fires, it heats up. And then as soon as it's in you, it cools. And now you've got like nasty, chunks of glue in there. Don't
Right?
pull that out. Have a doctor do that. Just take your hand or take your leg with you to the doctor's office and let them take that out. Because that's not, you can just yank it out. Yeah. That's just grab a Leatherman, but you're going to have blood everywhere. It's going to be a big mess and it's disgusting and it won't be disinfected properly. Just go to a doctor. If you can get to a doctor, get to a doctor.
Yeah, that sounds right. Um, somebody mentioned having their pets with them and that kind of thing, asking for advice on that. Honestly, my medical training, as far as sutures and lots of water, is pretty much it as far as what I can do with my animal. They do actually sell weird CPR masks for your
Yeah, they
pets.
they do, but I mean,
That's how much you love
pets
your
doesn't come
animal
up
and
that often.
whatever. And
Yeah,
you may there's also ways of
I did.
placing your hands and
Not to
covering
bring
their
the whole
nose.
mood
Yeah.
down, but I did actually have to give CPR to one of my dogs when it died, and it
It
didn't
was
work.
not a
But I
fun
was giving
time,
him
and yeah,
CPR. It wasn't pleasant.
Maybe if you
You know.
had done the proper mask and whatever, you could have
Well, I mean,
changed
you
the
can make
world.
a good seal by cupping your hands over its snout and blowing it in and
Yeah.
out. You can make a good
And
seal,
that's
but
it. Even a plastic bag, that you kind of wrap around and cut the air
right,
hole. Yeah, exactly. The bandages
right, and you can
and
do
the
for
quick
yeah,
clot will
exactly.
work with the
It is a
animals.
good point we should bring up that you can do first aid when it with a bleeding
Yeah.
dog. You can do some stuff to stop the bleeding and uh suture it up, pressure bandages, you know, you can take it to a vet to have it really fixed up, but if it's something serious like that. I know a friend of mine was in a car accident when I was
Uh,
a kid. Do you remember was a neighbor lived
with the
down the same
dog.
street as us
Yeah.
with the dog. He
Yep.
was in a car accident with Max was the name of the dog.
Yep.
Yeah, so they had to rush the dog to the emergency vet. You know,
Yeah.
it's worth knowing how to do some basic first aid
Right.
because it's the same
A lot of it
basic
is
anatomy.
is the same except you have the hair in the way.
Right,
Somebody mentioned gunpowder as working like quick clot, and that's actually definitely a real thing. A lot of the original quick clot was pretty much,
right. It was
the
basically salt
other
particles.
versions before the brand name
Hmm.
were gunpowder, and even quick clot originally was a powder with granules, and they used to complain a lot because people would use it with a less life threatening injury.
Right, and it
And
would leave like
it would
stuff in
leave
the
a
trail.
mess that the doctors were in picking out pieces of, mess and
Hmm.
whatever, and they weren't happy about it. And I'm like, you know what? The guy didn't die, and your job's a little bit harder. I'm sorry.
Right,
People do what they can do. It's
right.
funny. My wife was watching one of the medical shows the other day, and I guess the guy a tractor fell on a kid or something, and the guy calls for an ambulance and waits 20 minutes or whatever, and the ambulance doesn't come, whatever. I mean, the numbers may be all wrong, I don't know, it's an example, deal with it. But bottom line, the guy takes his kid and takes him to the hospital, and they're all pissed off that he may have caused further damage with paralysis and stuff because he moved his son. But what are you gonna do? Leave him there bleeding to death?
Right,
Because if you yeah, again, they don't want you to move an injured person, but always your first move is to get him out of immediate harm.
right,
I hate
right,
to say it, if you're in the middle of the field, yeah, you don't wanna move the guy, whatever, till the trained people come, but again, leaving him in the field to bleed to death, not necessarily a better alternative.
right. And we
So
should, we
we
should
all
bring
make
this
a
up.
call.
We should
Yeah,
talk about this for a couple of minutes. I just want to touch on that. The first thing you should do if you find somebody injured is stop and look around. Like
yeah,
what happened? How did this person get injured? I you hear these horror stories about like confined spaces where somebody
yes,
looks in and sees somebody unconscious and goes in after him, and you end up with like five dead people because it
yes,
keeps happening. Look around. Did that person get electrocuted? Are they still
yeah,
getting electrocuted? Do you need to
right,
like? Do you want to grab somebody that's got a big current going through 'em? You have to spend just a few seconds, count to five. It's not gonna, you know, cause any person any permanent damage more than anything else. But just take a minute and look around and try and figure out what happened to this person. See if they respond, yell their name, take a second and figure out what happened to them before you rush over and put your hands on them.
yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. You really have to think about your safety as well because I mean, again, you don't want more injury to happen to the people. I know that there was a car accident one time, and me and my brother were there, and it was it was on a dangerous turn. And what had happened was, somebody had slowed down or stopped. Another car came and rear-ended him, and the people inside the first car were pretty banged up and oh, don't move me, don't whatever. But more cars kept coming and slamming into the first car and the next car and the next
Hmm.
car. And it's constantly a dangerous, situation. And you have to make the call And a lot of states do have like good Samaritan laws where you make the best call you can and you go with it, because
Right.
people are afraid to help people because, hey, I might cause more damage. And
Right.
you know what? The more training you have, the better decisions you can make, based on the injuries. Hey, what happened? Hey, but just the same, you need to be aware of what's happening around you. You need to be aware of, am I putting myself in danger? And whatever. I mean, again, do you not climb out on the ledge and, grab the hand of the guy falling and, whatever.
Right.
You need to weigh all this stuff out. You also know your abilities. Um, but you having proper training is going to take you further ahead. Obviously, me and Kevin are not medical professionals. We're not giving you training. We're giving you some advice on things you might want to carry and
Yeah.
how you might use them.
And let's be honest, you can get training very easily and very inexpensively. A lot of companies provide free first aid and CPR training. Uh, it does not cost very much to take a class from the American Red Cross. There's a million places you can get first aid and CPR training. If you have no training at all, that's going to give you a big leg up. Um, if I'm talking to a doctor about CPR training, obviously, he's gonna have a lot more knowledge than anything that I can learn on my own.
Right.
But basic first aid and getting them to somebody that knows what they're doing without them being dead first, that's a
Right.
big that's a big leg up.
Somebody mentioned that they've heard rumors that at people's employers or, different aerospace or different industries, you might be able to find a bunch of stuff available to you, including complete kits that you could
Hmm.
just take home if you took them, I
Right.
guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
no, I
mean,
mean,
stuff's
the
available
truth is,
everywhere.
yeah, employers offer a lot of stuff. I mean, it's good for their insurance, but that's
Training
basically
and
why they do
equipment.
it. Yeah,
Correct.
they're gonna get lower rates on their insurance if all their employees are first aid trained. But
Yeah.
you know, it's not hard to find free stuff, and it's not
However, it's been my
expensive if you can.
experience, if just a little tip to the people making comments, if you were to take home, say, the Croyle or, the cans of contact cleaner or whatever you might, come up
Yeah,
with, you might want to take off the MSDS labels when they're at your house because that's like one
yeah,
of the dead giveaways
dead
of where it
giveaway.
came from. Just that's a secret of the pros. Um,
uh
or yeah, that's all I got there. Nothing else.
Um, now, real quick, I know we're getting to the end here. I would want to just go through basic setup for your medicine cabinet at home. You know, basic stuff you should have. I know a friend of mine was going to a third world country to visit some family,
Yeah,
and they couldn't get access to any basic medicine. You know what I mean? Aspirins, you know, cough medicine, any basic stuff that you can find at any pharmacy around you. And so he went to the pharmacy, bought a bunch of over the counter stuff, and it was a big thing for them. You know what I mean? Children's aspirin was like you couldn't get that. So it would make sense that you would have that stuff if you have access to that stuff. You have that at your house, and so I just want to go through some of the basic stuff you should have in your cabinet that's not expired. Um,
yeah,
Allergy medicine. Whether you have allergies or not, most people do have allergies to some things, but whether you do or not, it's good to have any type of um, cold that you get that involves like sneezing and that sort of stuff. That allergy medicine is going to work pretty well for it. Aspirin, acetaminophen, or ibuprofen. Those
right.
are good for pain relief, but they're also good for reducing inflammation and fever. So those are good things. I mean, obviously, a fever it gets up to 101 or 102, and you want to start thinking about bringing that fever down so it doesn't kill the person.
Yeah,
Hydrocortisone cream. That's a great thing with you know poison ivy. You get I get out in the woods and I get all sorts of nasty shit on me. Bug bites, wasp stings, all that sort of stuff. It's really good for reducing the reaction to that.
Yeah, you guys have probably heard me mention I always keep a little tube of Orajel in the medicine
Hmm.
cabinet, and for a sting or whatever with the kids, I know they get a bee sting, you throw Orajel on there, and it's like instant relief, and they're like,
Right.
"Oh, you saved me,"
Yeah.
you know? Plus, obviously, it's not toxic, they put it in their mouth, that kind of
Right.
stuff.
Um. Uh. Imodium for diarrhea. Now, diarrhea is one of the big killers out there. Worldwide, not the United States necessarily, but basically what it is you get dehydrated and you don't have enough access to clean water to keep yourself hydrated, and you basically die from dehydration. Not a pleasant way to go. So,
No.
something you want to be on top of if you have that situation going on. There's a lot of cough medicine out there that works pretty well that you can get over the counter. Um, then you want to have some basics like a thermometer, cotton swabs. Now, I checked a bunch of lists um, as far as what you want in your medicine cabinet. All of them, for some reason, have condoms in there.
Really?
I don't know. Is there multiple uses for condoms I don't know about? Because I never use those things, man. It's the only thing that the Pope and I agree on.
Is that right?
Yeah, no, no, that ain't that's not the game I play. I'm not into that.
Alright. Now somebody also mentioned, like, Pepto-Bismol, the indigestion, that kinda
Right.
stuff
Those
get you
That's
in.
good stuff.
Saving, they mentioned saving their dog's prescriptions for whatever,
Yeah.
that
No,
they're sharing with their pets. Well,
yeah. Be
I know my dog.
conscientious of what
Yeah.
that stuff is and the dosage that.
Yeah, my dog used to, be on prednisone, and
Uh-huh.
prednisone is king, I gotta say. It has some benefits, you'll have to look into that. But, that's one of the thing, they talk about the fish antibiotics and things like that. That's something, we've talked about on other episodes, and you guys should really look into, stuff that's available at, like, Tractor Supply for horses or dogs or, whatever. They have a lot of different things available, but do your research. Nobody's recommending you whatever. I'm just saying there's other places you can look to find similar things,
Right.
um, that maybe can meet your need that you can get over the counter without a prescription. Obviously, taking any kind of controlled substance without a prescription would be a horrible idea if you
Against the
followed
law.
all the rules
Yeah,
the
it's against
government
the law.
puts out for you.
Mhm.
Right, that is correct. So, just putting that out there.
All right. One thing I wanted to touch on before we get things wrapped up is vaccines. I want to, talk about that sort of stuff. It's good to get, your flu vaccines. It's good to get your basic vaccines. I know when I was in the Navy, they shot me up with all sorts of stuff, and I never get sick. I'll probably get like cerebral palsy at some point, or like, some sort of degenerative brain issue. But you know, uh, I got the. You remember getting the anthrax vaccine when you're in the Navy, Chuck?
I did get an anthrax vaccine when
I
I
have
was in
never
the
been exposed
Navy.
to anthrax. It doesn't come up very often that you get
No.
exposed to anthrax, but turns out if I am, maybe I'll. I don't. I mean, I don't even know. Maybe I'll have some sort of resistance, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, sorry. What I was told is you need to get a booster like every 6 months for your anthrax, but I feel like you and me have a better shot when we come across anthrax. When I open up the envelope and it's full of white powder,
Hmm.
I jump back a little bit slower than everybody else. I'm like,
Right.
"Oh, it's
Right.
gonna be okay. Everyone
I'm
take
gonna
a."
be fine.
You wanna say
Yeah. No.
take a breath, but then you're like, "Wait, maybe don't take a breath because it's
Right.
anthrax,"
It's
but,
anthrax. Yeah.
anyway, somebody mentioned, and actually this is a good point, that, if you sign up for the safety at your employer, a
The
lot of
safety.
guys who
Yeah.
work for the bigger employers, including my company, they, uh they have, like, safety people, and they're always hounding somebody to be what is it? They call it the star point leader, I think. I don't even know what that means. You handle safety for, your department, and they'll send you to extra training and classes. Usually I know at my company that involves being able to show people how to do the crossword puzzle that has safety words like tourniquet in it. Um,
Right.
but maybe they have more advanced training. Um, I know one of my buddies was in the Marines and saw less, combat than he was kind of signed up and hoping for. But it
Right.
turned out that they were happy to send him to mountain survival school, wilderness survival school, desert survival school. You want to cash in on
Any free stuff,
any
any
free
free training.
stuff. Warren made a mention of the anthrax shot. Yeah, it was a fun shot. Any of you guys who actually got the anthrax shot, you don't forget it. It burned like you wouldn't believe going in. Where you're just like, oh yeah, I feel that. And
Right. You can
it was
feel
one
it
of
moving
those,
up your arm.
yeah, the next morning you're like, oh, I can't move my arm. A lot of the guys, we were on the ship on the way when we got the anthrax shot. And you sleep in these weird racks. And when you go to push up, your arm just doesn't even work. And guys are like falling over and falling out of bed. It's definitely one that
Yeah,
you
it's
want to
not
avoid if you can.
right. Right. But I mean things like the flu shot and stuff like that that come around every year, it's worthwhile to get it. I thought I had the flu before, and it turns out I had a bad cold because when I got the flu, it was a whole different thing. It was not a bad cold. It's a lot
Oh,
worse than that.
I've always, yeah, I went to the urgent care. And I'm like, yeah, I can't even move. I'm gonna die. And I must have the flu. And they're like, no, it's a cold. You have a cold.
You have a
And
cold,
they
yeah.
were like, don't come in here with this nonsense, you
With this
baby, and
bullshit.
whatever. And I'm like, my wife was right
Yep.
the whole time. And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
I could die. Um, People also mentioned, a lot of the employers don't have the first aid supplies that they should. And being stuck going out to their own vehicle and getting their own. One of the
Right.
things I do is, and again, don't tell my employer, but having band-aids and triple antibiotic in the drawer or bacitracin, whatever you choose to do. I know a lot of people are anti triple antibiotic because you weaken this, the immunity to the strains. But anyway, um, having that, if I go and get a band-aid, it's like an OSHA reportable and whatever, so people end up not going and getting medical attention when something that might be exposed or could get infected, that kind of thing. So having something to treat the nothing wounds that you get could be a game changer because infections suck and you
Mhm.
don't want any part of that.
Right.
Obviously, I'm not telling anyone to not report whatever happens at work because God forbid.
God
But
forbid.
you understand what I'm saying. If you're not going to do anything, having something to protect it and to kind of put an antibiotic in there might be a good way to go.
Yeah,
Just
even a
just a
even a
thought.
little cut can get infected, and
Right.
it's worth having. And that's another thing that you should have at home is multiple types of disinfectant. Antibiotic ointment is great, but have a couple of. You can get a quart of rubbing alcohol for about $1.50. It's not expensive. Maybe it's $3 now. But
Yeah.
you can get hydrogen. You're not supposed to use hydrogen peroxide for wounds anymore, supposedly.
Is that a thing?
Um,
Okay.
I guess it causes
That
damage to the tissue,
Yeah, they say
but
the little bubbling, it turns
yeah.
white and
But you
dies
can
at
use
the
hydrogen
edges, but
peroxide for a
whatever.
lot of different stuff that's
And
not
it
just
turns out
wounds
it's
and
better than
and
an infection.
it
It's
is.
maybe not the go-to,
Right.
but whatever. Maybe buy
Whatever.
the alcohol instead of the triple antibiotic, whatever. Anyway, that's about what we got. So, just wanted to point out, you got any more, Kevin? Anything that
Nope,
had
that's
to
it.
get in there? That's it?
No, no,
All
I
right.
think we'll be alright.
All right. I know you wanted to talk about salmonella, but I know you and your tirades, it could get ugly.
Well, alright, listen.
All right, there it is. I opened the door.
So, I was reading up on salmonella because, it's one of those things that you can get from, if you're not being as clean as you should be, if you let, infected meat sit out in the counter too long, you don't cook it properly. So let's just be clear: 18% of ground chicken, 15% of ground turkey, and 4% of whole chicken is infected with salmonella. This is the stuff you get at the grocery store because there's no regulation on salmonella, as insane as that sounds. So I know you have your own chickens. I do my own stuff. And if your chickens and animals don't have salmonella, you can eat their eggs raw. It's not a big
Right.
deal. You can eat their meat raw. You're not going to get it. But I don't, eating chicken raw is just kind of gross. If you
Right.
get it from the grocery store, it's dangerous too. And what salmonella does is it gives you diarrhea. But the truth is, you should be trying to get salmonella right now. You know what I'm saying? You can go to the
Really?
doctor, and 9 times out of 10, it's not even gonna like cause you any serious harm. A couple of days being sick. I do raw eggs all the time because I'm trying to get salmonella. You know what I mean? It seems like a fun illness to have. It's just a little diarrhea. What's wrong with that? You know what I mean? Drink
Kevin,
some
you could
water. You
lose
got
some
clean tap
weight.
water coming out.
There you go.
You're going to be in trouble when the world ends and you don't have a doctor and you don't have clean water and then you get salmonella. Then you're going to be in trouble. But this is America. You know what I mean? We have the best doctors in the world. Chicks love scars. They
And
don't they're not so much into diarrhea. But all I'm
now
saying is
I feel like
all I'm
I
saying is
shouldn't
you
have
should be
opened the
trying to
door.
get yourself sick as much as possible right now when you can go to the doctor. You can go to the doctor anytime you want. So all I'm saying is try and make yourself sick. Drink some
Oh
dangerous
Lord.
water. Drink some pond water. See what happens. You know what I'm saying? Because you might be end up in a situation where you have to risk certain things, and you're gonna know what's gonna happen to you when you drink that pond water, and then you throw up for 45 minutes. You know,
And there you go. Kevin with his helpful advice once again.
I'm just saying, it, being sick isn't so terrible right now.
No.
Just you want to avoid that stuff when you're in a real situation
Raw
without
shrimp
doctors
in
and
Mexico. Is
ambulances.
that the raw shrimp in Mexico is the secret? All right.
That's the secret.
But there you go. I'm not sure that Kevin was giving out the best advice. But again, we're not medical professionals. We're professional podcasters. How about
Yeah, and
that?
if you listen to me, you might die. I mean, I'm just
That
saying.
that that's pretty much the answer. So, with that, don't forget you can get badass gear at preppingbadass.com. You guys may have
Right.
seen in the Facebook group that we gave away a badass knife last week. Um, you have an opportunity to win such a knife. I think I have 3 more of the big Bowie knives, and then maybe 2 or 3 smaller Skinner knives
So we're gonna do another giveaway.
once a month. Well, once a month as I remember. How about that?
All right.
And the other problem, I'll put this out now. I don't know if you guys, I'll put some kind of disclaimer together somewhere. But the downside is you have to live somewhere you can own a Bowie knife. I can't ship it like outside of the country. They get panicky. A lot of countries. I also can't ship it to like New York City. Maybe I don't even know. But
Yeah.
bottom
Well,
line, check the
if
laws
if
where you
if
live.
you end up getting picked as one of the people, maybe you'll just get one of the Skinner knives instead of the Bowie knives.
Right. We'll work something
So
out.
anybody can put themselves in for it, but you might not be able to get the Bowie knife.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm reading the comments and get slowly disturbed, but
Yeah.
whatever. Um anyway, the you might want to go to preppingbadass.com, sign up for the email list, check out we have badass gear. You want a don't give them a fucking inch coffee mug? We got them. They're on there. That kind of thing. Anyway, you have show ideas, thoughts, concerns, questions, comments. We're looking to do a badass of the month, year, whatever for the podcast maybe next week. If you have an idea, maybe shoot us an email. But you got to act quick because we actually like to do some research. So don't hesitate if you got the idea. It might save it for a future episode. But with that, stay safe and we will talk to you guys next week.